Hello, welcome to another episode of the RKMCS Criminology Lecture Series. I am Professor Angelica and I am your lecturer for today. The topic I'm going to share with you is about forensic science, one of the core subject matter in criminal justice education in the Philippines. I have prepared the list of the famous criminalists or forensic scientists who have contributed to the development of forensic studies globally. The objective of this presentation is for you to be able to know them and understand their significant contributions in this field of study. I am going to present them based on a historical timeline. Number 1. Thomas Bevick, an English naturalist who used engravings of his own fingerprints to identify books he published. He is credited with popularizing a technical innovation in the printing of illustrations using wood. He adopted metal engraving tools to cut hard boxwood across the grain, producing printing blocks that could be integrated with metal type, but were much more durable than traditional woodcuts. Number 2. Mathieu Orfila, a Spanish professor of forensic chemistry in Paris, published his book on toxicology and gained the fame as father of modern toxicology. His massive treatise on poisons appeared in 3 languages in the second decade of the 19th century and immediately propelled the medical, biological, chemical, physiological, and legal sciences in new directions. Number 3. John Evangelist Perkins, a Czech anatomist and physiologist. He was one of the best-known scientists of his time. He discovered the Perkins effect whereby as light intensity decreases, red objects seems to fade faster than blue objects of the same brightness. He was also a professor of anatomy in Czechoslovakia who published the first paper on the nature of fingerprints and suggested a classification system based on 9 major types. Number 4. Henry Goddard, one of the original Bow Street runners, known to be the first to use bullet comparison to catch a murderer. His comparison was based on a visible flaw in the bullet which was traced back to a mold. In 1835, Goddard successfully identified a murderer by using a bullet recovered from the body of the victim at autopsy. In those days bullets were produced by melting lead and pouring it into 2-piece molds. Most individuals used their own lead and bullet molds to produce bullets for their guns. He is credited as one of the first individuals to recognize the potential of firearms evidence as an aid in identifying the criminals involved. Number 5. Alphonse Bertillon, a French police clerk who introduced and established the first systematic identification system based on anthropometrical signalement or anthropometry. Anthropometry was the first scientific system used by police to identify criminals. Before that time, criminals could only be identified by name or photograph. The method was eventually supplanted by fingerprinting. Bertillon is considered as the founder of criminal identification. Number 6. Hans Gustas Adolf Gross, also known as Hans Gross. An Austrian jurist and criminologist who published Criminal Investigation, the first comprehensive description of uses of physical evidence in solving crime. He was credited coining the word criminalistics. He advocated the use of scientific methods in criminal investigation process. He is one of the founding father of criminal profiling. Throughout his life, Hans Gross made significant contributions to the realm of scientific criminology. As Gross developed in his career as an examining justice, he noticed the failings of the field of law. His book, Classes, Institutions, and Methods helped improve the justice system through his experience as a jurist, criminologist, and criminalist. Number 7. Sir Francis Galton, an Englishman scientist and inventor who published his study on classifying fingerprints. While other scientists were studying fingerprints in their biological nature, Galton recognized their uniqueness and potentiality in criminal identification. He devised a method for classifying fingerprints that proved useful in forensic science. As an investigator of the human mind, he also founded psychometrics, or the science of measuring mental faculties, and differential psychology, as well as the lexical hypothesis of personality. Number 9. Karl Landsteiner, an Austrian-American biologist, physician, and immunologist who first discovered human blood groups. He distinguished the main blood groups in 1900, having developed the modern system of classification of blood groups from his identification of the presence of agglutinins in the blood. His works on the detection of blood, its species, and its type formed the basis of practically all subsequent works. He received the Aronson Prize in 1926. In 1930, he received the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. Number 10. Victor Bathazzard, a French forensic scientist who published the first comprehensive hair study. But he is also credited on his works about the use of photographic enlargements of bullets and cartridge cases to determine the weapon type. He was among the first to attempt to individualize a bullet to a weapon. He published a paper on firearms identification, where he presented bullet comparison. He made reference to the fact that marks left on cartridge cases by firing pins, breech faces, ejectors, extractors, chambers, and magazines were all of potential value in identifying the responsible firearm. Number 11. Edmund Lokard, the pioneer in forensic science who became known as the Sherlock Holmes of France. A French criminologist who first suggested 12 matching points as a positive fingerprint identification. But bigger than this work, he formulated the basic principle of forensic science: every contact leaves a trace, which became known as Lokard's exchange principle. And last but not the least, number 12. Alec Jeffreys, a British geneticist, who developed techniques for genetic fingerprinting and DNA profiling which are now used worldwide in forensic science to assist police detective work and to resolve paternity and immigration disputes. He was first to use DNA in crime solving. In 1987, DNA profiling was introduced for the first time in a U.S. criminal courts. That ends my presentation on the top 12 most famous forensic scientists, criminalists. I hope you learned something worthwhile from this short video. Please don't forget to subscribe on this channel for more similar videos to come. Check our site, www.criminologysolutions.com. Thank you for watching.